레시버하고 리시버를 이렇게 꽂으신 다음에 전원 버튼 누르시면 채널 1번하고 2번 이렇게 움직이실 수 있거든요. 그래서 1번에서 아마 좀 전에는 한국어가 나왔었는데 채널을 좀 확인해 주시면 좋겠네요. 네, 그리고 지금 6분의 패널 분께서도 네, 동시 통역기를 좀 착용하시면 좋을 것 같습니다.
Hello, my name is Saul. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Mr. Park, for inviting me here for the second time. I would like to speak about blockchain 2030. I have 7 years of experience in blockchain. I'm looking forward to be with you and add some value.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicolas Jacquet. I'm the marketing director for Hashtag. I'm very happy to be here. This is the first time for me. Just a quick background while we wait for Andy. So Hashtag is the hybrid blockchain solution, public and private platform. And I'm the marketing director, so I'm covering everything that's about like communication and finding out like the best way to target customers and talk to them.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Kochmer. I'm currently associated with the National University in Singapore, and I've actually been on the internet professionally since 1981. I just checked on internet statistics, and there are only 120 major computers connected to the internet at the time, and about 20,000 users. So that was when I was attending Yale University, which also my action buddy here attended. I was also a ninth employee at Amazon.com, so I have a knack of getting on things early and helped there to develop systems that converted Amazon from selling just books to being able to sell anything and becoming the everything store. Then I was the lead information architect for the most comprehensive computational engine to calculate the economic benefits of nature to the human economy. So I'm very interested in using technology for large-scale planetary problems. And I'm currently working in the interface between IoT, blockchain, and digital twinning. So I've been keeping my eye on the future, and I look forward to talking about where we'll be in 2013.
My name is Anndy Lian. I'm the founding member of Hong Kong Blockchain Association. I actually got out of New Haven for Wall Street after the same years, nearly the same years, some time ago. My first job was a hedge fund trader. It's just like a regular intermediary fund manager. And I got into blockchain industry by pretty much an accident. I was more managing private equity fund and hedge fund on the side. However, I started investing in some small startup companies. And in 2015, 2016, they all got into blockchain industry. So naturally, I got a lot of coins, and therefore I became kind of like a blockchain leader in Hong Kong blockchain community there. Well, I still manage a digital asset fund here, a JV partnership with GSR Capital, which is one of the most famous VC funds from China. I'd like to invest more in the startup companies with focus in fintech area, so maybe we'll talk more later on that area.
안녕하세요.
Okay.
So I'm going to translate from Russian language to English. Thank you for understanding.
Мы являемся строителями комьюнити блокчейна.
We are builders of community blockchain.
Наша задача привлечь людей, представителей малого и среднего бизнеса.
Our goal is to invite people from middle and small businesses to blockchain technologies.
И внедрить технологию блокчейн в реальный сектор бизнеса.
And for them to implement blockchain technologies in the real business sector.
Наше комьюнити, оно в различных странах и насчитывает 57 стран.
Our EDC blockchain community is represented in 57 countries,
И я являюсь CEO этого проекта.
and he's a CEO of this project. Thank you.
Hi, I'm the moderator that was late for the introduction. So my name is Andy. I'm from Singapore. Right now, I'm an inter-government blockchain advisor to Asian Productivity Organization. And Jonathan is also my fellow committee mate at Gyeongsan Book Blockchain Special Committee, where we help the governor to look at how to make the province better using blockchain. So apart from that, myself, I'm a rather active investor into the blockchain space. We look at promising projects from main chain, mainnet, to games, to medical. And today we are all very happy to be here to share some of our thoughts, and definitely we could share a lot of good insights with you, because we have a very regional team, an international team right here, right now. So let me just begin this chit chat, all right? So as you know, the title of this session is about blockchain in 2030. And if you look at it, this coincides with one of the books that I have written in Korean some months ago. We talk about the future of blockchain and how blockchain is going to impact our lives in the near future. So maybe let me kickstart the whole conversation. How would everyone here see blockchain in 3 to 5 years down the road? Let's not talk about 10 years down the road. 3 to 5 years. What is your vision for blockchain? Hey, buddy.
I will start with the digital securities, which actually is a $300 trillion market. They're gonna start kicking right now. Since 2018 they start, and they're just a huge market that is growing. That's one. Second part is gonna be the entertainment industry, where every single thing we do on the entertainment is gonna be tokenized or used by blockchain platforms. The other one will be the countries are gonna start opening more and implementing regulation frameworks that allow us, the people from the industry, to run the projects with blockchain.
That's nice.
I would. So for me, I would agree with your vision. I just want to add a couple of things. From my perspective, the blockchain industry, right now, is facing. We have a lot of players, and like any industry, the economic approach of anything that goes on, we unfortunately gonna have a lot of players that gonna disappear. That's just the natural way of things. So ultimately, I feel in the next 2, 3, 4 years, the playing field is gonna be cleared a little bit, and only the major ones, the ones who've come up with a key value proposition, with key business model, will survive. So that's what we're going to see in the next 3, 4 years. And hopefully for people like me, for marketers like me, this difference will be made on with the rightful communication for those companies.
I think my perspective comes from drawing analogies from my experience witnessing the explosion of the internet. I think there's many parallels that can be drawn. First of all, I hope that within 3 to 5 years, the opacity and obscurity of doing payments on blockchains and working with private and public keys becomes as seamless as using a chip-enabled credit card. Currently, it's just far too complicated to use that most basic aspect of a blockchain, the payments solution. Also, analogous again to the internet in, say, 1992, 93 or so, are that I think within 3 to 5 years, the 4 core S's that are currently limiting blockchain adoption, which are scalability, security, speed, and let's be honest about ecological sustainability, should be soluble. And when I talk about sustainability, I'm making a reference, of course, generally to the energetic wastefulness of Bitcoin, which gets all the attention. But in addition, if we think about our current data center-driven economy, there's a tremendous amount of energy wastage and effort put into our digital economy that isn't being really attended to. So as somebody who's been thinking about the context of blockchain at a planetary level and thinking in terms of our impacts on the Earth, I hope that fourth S also becomes solved. I think I'll just leave it at those because I think those are really my unique perspectives on it. Let's hear what everybody else has to say.
Well, thank you for...
Oh, one more thing. We tend to think about blockchain as a technology, but it's also very, very tied up to governance issues. And I think the failures of a lot of blockchain projects haven't been due to technical issues, they've been due to human nature and the difficulty of governance. And I haven't heard anything about governance yet today. So let's talk about that. Be sure to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, for me, 2030 is a big year for blockchain from three perspectives. Number one, universal applications of blockchain technologies. I would say in both of the industrial and commercial areas, from banking, capital markets to trade, logistics, almost every single perspective of our regular livings would be, I would say, a good place for blockchain application. Number two, come back to number one. I would say everybody recall possibly Internet World Wide Web. That was in 1990. And then 10 years after, you see a big drop of the dot-com bubble. And from there on, you see a lot of startup companies in the internet area. So now we have Google, we have Facebook, we have Amazon, and of course Alibaba and Baidu, Tencent. So I would say that 10 years from now, we will see a lot of unicorns in this industry. Hopefully, some of you here will become one of those unicorns there. Number two, I would say the major breakthrough will be the financial area. I would predict an all-inclusive financial service to everyone on the earth. Nowadays, we have over 2 billion people who has no wallets or no banking accounts. However, most of them already have a cell phone. In the future, we would see possibly a lot of home companies. We understand that Samsung, HTC, and also Huawei, they all are making wallet into their phone. And this wallet connecting with some stable coins from Libra to DCEP by Chinese central government. I would say every single person on the earth who has a cell phone would have a banking account. And they would have access to all the financial services, not only from the payment, but also from the capital market activities there. On one side, you can find the best financial products for you to invest, for your future, for learning, and for your children's, I would say, the tuitions. And then on the other side, you can also sell your shares or tokens to other people for fundraising of your startup. I think that would be a great future for low intermediaries in the capital market. So for young kids like most of our people here, entrepreneurs, you don't need bankers, accountants, or lawyers there to get you to raise a fund. You can simply tokenize your company and also to get all the information on-chain to be verified there, and your investor would come to you directly. And I would say in the future, the financial sector would be kind of like wallet-to-wallet transaction, or we call peer-to-peer transaction, without intermediaries. Everybody knows that the capital market and the financial service industry have been crowded with a lot of intermediaries. And in the future, those people who don't make any value or who don't produce any value in the economy possibly will be taken out by the blockchain technology. I see a lot of revolutions in the financial sector. So that's one of the reasons I focus more You want to add something here?
Disintermediation will be very, very high because of blockchain.
That's of course. And number three, I would say we are going to have more privacy and a more open discussion, of course, under privacy, and a more sharing in the economy and in the social. I always say that blockchain technology is not only a technology breakthrough, but also the social revolution. I would say that once we have the blockchain technology there, we can freely share our information, and we can, of course, share our capital, share our everything there pretty much on the platform. And the shared economy would give us more equality in the society, and would further eliminate the three major social problems we are facing. Number one is a generation gap. The old people control, sorry, I'm part of the old guys, maybe, Jonathan here, control most of the resources, and young people are locked up the pending resources, so they have to fight for it. And so that's what's going on happening in Hong Kong. And of course, the other issue here is that we see a huge discrepancy between the rich and poor. Everybody knows that the capitalism in the 21st century is getting worse and worse. And by Thomas Piketty, last 150 years, the growth of capital somehow is much, much quicker than the growth of the labor income. Therefore, you see the rich people become richer, and then the poor people become poorer. However, if we have the blockchain technology to enable capital to be shared, and then many other capital tools to be shared, then for young people who want to do their startup, that would be much easier. And I would say the society will be much better for 2030. So somehow I encourage everyone here, we all focus on blockchain technology's application and to make our society much better.
Я согласен с моим предыдущим собеседником.
He's agreeing with colleague.
Токенизация сегодня идет в реальный сектор.
Tokenization is going through the real business sector.
Мы видим, как токенизируется производство, токенизируются коммерческие учреждения.
We can see how businesses can tokenize right now, or educational system can be tokenized.
И я уверен, что через 3-4 года мы придем к тому, что будет и личная токенизация личного бренда.
So he's assured that in 3-4 years it will be even personal tokenization, like your personal brand tokenization.
Когда можно свою ценность выразить это в токенизации и привлечь инвестиции для реализации самого себя.
When you can tokenize your value as a person and get investments to yourself through tokenization.
Когда ты можешь токенизировать себя и получать инвестиции для обучения, для своей повышения квалификации, тем самым увеличивать свой личный бренд.
When you can tokenize yourself and get investments to educate yourself more, to develop yourself more, and develop your personal brand.
И то, что предыдущие собеседники говорили, что блокчейн и инструменты на блокчейне это первое, это безопасность.
So as everyone said before, that all the tools in blockchain comes with main things such as first security,
Peer-to-peer.
peer-to-peer,
И убирает лишних посредников, что сегодня является банковской системой.
and which is clean all these intermediaries, so you can work directly to each other.
Это увеличивает скорость отношений между людьми.
Which is going with speed and speed transactions.
Communication, speed transaction, быстрое применение, прием инвестиций и для развития.
So you can get investments fast as well for your development.
Естественно, на данный момент не хватает регуляторной системы для того, чтобы проводить это официально юридическую основу.
Of course, right now there is a lack with regulations, and by jurisdiction there are some problems with that.
И на фоне этого многие проекты, которые сегодня не могут реализоваться, как тоже говорили многие
So,
спикеры.
due to these things, there are lots of good projects that cannot do their realizations and cannot operate because of those regulations.
Но я верю, что это именно та революция, которая изменит всю экономику взаимоотношений людей.
But he believes that that's exactly that revolution which has changed all these communications and in blockchain.
Поэтому я вижу еще одну вещь, которую нужно усиливать. Это обучение не только молодежи, но и другого возраста, среднего, высшего возраста, которым не хватает этого.
He also sees a lack in education, awareness of people in blockchain technologies. So it's not only young generation, but also older people should be educated and get awareness about technologies.
Для того, чтобы было массовое применение технологии блокчейн в повседневной жизни.
Then we can have a mass blockchain community who's using it daily.
Поэтому я думаю, что мы являемся писателями истории.
And he calls us history writers based on it. Thank you.
Well, so it's my turn. I think we really wrote some good history, along the way since 2017. But I've heard a lot of conversations from my own panelists here. But I think that, blockchain is not going to be too, just to be honest, blockchain is not going to be too great, It can't solve the gaps between the rich and poor, Definitely it's not going to give you more capital along the way. Because once you miss that timeline, you're going to miss everything. So that's the good thing why we are all still here, trying to fight our way through, make sure that we create certain value for blockchain. But you look at it this way, blockchain is always a business, Blockchain is not just a technology. But if you look at how everybody, maybe in the room and also some of our own friends, they look at blockchain as a very much of a speculation tool, How you look at the alternate coins and how you can get rich using the alternate coins. I think using that kind of perspective is not going to help the industry in any ways. So we need researchers like Jonathan, good marketers like Nicholas and so forth. So my view in the next 3 to 5 years' time is not so much on of what was being covered here. I look at the trend that's going to come out in the next 3 to 5 years would be the securitization of digital assets. How you redefine digital assets and how STO can be a good value, or a good market tool for the future. I'm not an expert in the capital market. I'm not a hedge fund manager too, but I do see that there's a very big shift, from the current utility payment tokens into a more securitized token, where we can look at debt-based tokens, equity-based tokens. Of course, there are a lot of different problems that comes with all these new tokens. But I do see that in 3 to 5 years down the road, government regulations will set in, and that will give us more room to play, and also in a more restricted field where we could try and grow the economy. So coming back to the second question that we have for the panel, actually I have nothing in mind, just to be very frank. I told them we are going for a freestyle panelist discussion, but looking at everybody right now, we all came from different countries, from Armenia maybe, from Hong Kong, from Dubai and so forth, Singapore. So why not this way? Let us talk about how you felt the regulations are going forward in your own country, and how are these regulations going to help the industry again in our very near future.
Okay, so let me speak about Abu Dhabi first, which is the capital of United Arab Emirates. Dubai is a touristic city, and tourism is the industry. Right now, the Securities Authority is opening up for securities, digital securities, blockchain platforms, and as well they're gonna open everything for fractional ownership. So that means the entire market of financial markets like securities, bonds, stocks and shares is going to be allowed, and it's going to be allowed to be in digital. Abu Dhabi Global Market, which is the largest financial institution in Abu Dhabi, is very open for crypto banks, crypto assets management, and exchanges to be opening there. That is Dubai. Now with Dubai, the Securities Exchange Commission just opened they released a document so everybody can see the draft and update and actually participate on how to build up the regulation for Dubai.
So for my case, I'm French, but I actually live in Seoul. So I guess I just focus, looking at the crowd, I just focus on the French side. So France has taken like some, let's say like innovative position in terms of regulating blockchain and cryptocurrencies. But the one thing I've noticed, and I think that's, let's say that's true across most countries, it's a kind of a discrepancy of confusion among politicians in a country like France about like what is the role of blockchain and how they perceive cryptocurrency. Because cryptocurrency has been associated, and I'm talking about like the way people are educated about technology. Cryptocurrency has been associated with a get-rich-quick scheme. So the kind of a scam that they associate cryptocurrency with kind of refrain politicians to take the right, I would say, a fair position on legislation, and ultimately that will impact blockchain because those two notions, those two concepts are very tightly linked. So hopefully we can, and you were mentioning about education with E, but this one is educating people about new technologies and concepts, and that's the role that we have all here in this room. We're going to talk out there. If you ask people here, everybody knows what is blockchain, what is, let's say, IoT, artificial intelligence. If you go out there in the street, I'm sure like there's a lot to teach to people. So that's our role, and usually that will get to a later stage to politicians, and they will put the right legislation to it.
I'm going to turn the question upside down and on top of its head, and because I'm surrounded by people that are expert in regulatory issues and in finance, and I'm not, I'm going to approach this from a different angle, which is, I think a very interesting question that I don't hear asked very often is not how will blockchain be regulated, but how can blockchain help regulate society better? And I think a very good example of that is thinking in terms of externalities. Externalities in economic systems are where an actor can harm society without suffering the consequences. So, for example, petroleum companies generate a lot of fossil fuels. They reap the benefits from the sales of those, but they do not suffer the consequences of the health consequences or the CO2 emissions. There's no capturing of the externalities. Similarly, there's all sorts of side effects from pharmaceuticals or other industries where the industry does not suffer the negative consequences of their actions. The brilliant thing about blockchain in this context is that blockchain can expose externalities and assign those costs to the actors. And I think that the amount of transparency that blockchain could provide as a foundation for what are called Pigouvian taxes. Now, Pigouvian taxes is not something that you hear of very often because I think they're very, very unpopular with people that are in power. But a Pigouvian tax benefits us all because externalities are then paid for by the creators of those externalities. So I think that's a different way of looking at regulation and blockchain.
Well, the global blockchain regulation has three major trends. Number one here is the globalization or the universal standard of regulations. I know everybody here is talking about decentralization. However, there's one organization called FATF, Financial Action Task Force. It's an organization specifically designed for anti-money laundering and also counter-terrorist financing. And this organization is sponsored by 37 countries, almost including every single major economy on the world, on the earth, and just proposed a universal standard for virtual asset service provider, or VASP. And somehow the rules was accepted by G20 in Osaka last June. It's June 28th. I remember I was actually speaking after the ex-chairman of FATF in the dinner conference. And somehow I told him, well, he's more talking about the universal standard for regulation global-wise. I was more talking about innovation, so pretty much like Jonathan, talking about technologies can help regulation by themselves. But anyway, we are facing a big deadline here for FATF's recommendation next year. June 30 will be the last day for each and every single jurisdiction to implement their own licensing or regulatory rules for all the VASP, virtual asset service provider. So everyone doing virtual asset service providing here possibly has to be careful there. Yes, a lot of jurisdictions don't give out licenses under the common law practice. Whatever the law didn't prohibit it from you from doing, it is legal to do so. However, under this rule, we'll see a big licensing wave coming by end of June 30th, unless that jurisdiction doesn't want to be included in the major financial system. That's a major issue. I want to remind everyone to be careful of that. And number two here is before the universal standard, we've seen a jurisdiction competition. Every single jurisdiction is trying to, especially in the smaller economy, has been trying to leave rooms for innovation. And we've seen Singapore, Malta, Switzerland, as well as Hong Kong. They are the front runners for allowing cryptocurrency to open business in under their jurisdiction. They also started to give banking license for virtual assets as well. And then they started to allow exchanges to trade securities tokens. Of course, we do see major economies like US and UK, they all come around under FCA's global sandbox system. And that was what US gave up their own sandbox. They decided to join the UK system. And we've seen also a major regulatory improvement in US as well. And of course, China has been thinking this way and that way. They want the node coins blockchain technology to be their national strategy. However, they just started to get rid of all the exchanges there in China last 2 days. So it's okay to do blockchain technology in China, but somehow it's quite tough for you to do any cryptocurrency business there. Hong Kong is the only exception. Remember, Hong Kong is still under the one country, two system there. So they have the freedom under the common law. Hong Kong just issued a securities token regulation about 2 weeks ago by Archie Otter, the CEO of SFT. It allows securities token to be listed on exchange in Hong Kong. And also the exchanges are encouraged to get their security token license in Hong Kong. So I welcome every one of you to go there. Don't be afraid of the protest. It's always peaceful. and the last thing I'd like to, actually I already said a part of it in my second point. The last point here is the regulations become more and more detailed. We've seen AML rules there. We've seen CFT rules there, and now we say securities tokens rule. And for Singapore or for US, they even gave out the payment token or the payment or electronic payment license there. And UK the same. And in Southeast Asian countries, we've seen EMI license in Philippines, in Indonesia. They can also do cryptocurrency as well. So the regulations become very sophisticated, and that's actually a little burden for our entrepreneurs. So I would say, in long run, the real solutions have to come from technology. If we rely on people, we rely on the regulators to regulate. We've seen a lot of frauds from WorldCom to Enron or to lately we've seen GE Capital or even some famous Japanese companies reporting in their fraudulent financial statements there. And these frauds can be taken away by technology like a blockchain. And somehow, if we believe in algorithm, I say that in the future, our wallet will have two things, two major functions. On one side is the AI to maximize our financial goal there. And on the other side would be the compliance. And any transactions in that particular space and that particular time will be stopped by the regulations for, I would say, illegal transactions there. And also, of course, as just Jonathan stated, that the technologies can also track down all those illegal or unlawful activities there. And that would help our regulators or not. So again, I still think that technologies would solve all problems, and we should rely on the technologies to really provide the real regulation.
Мы выбираем как раз страны, где у нас проект международный.
Our project is worldwide, so
Мы как раз выбираем те зоны, где есть какая-то регуляция, поэтому у нас регистрация в Гонконге и в Эстонии.
so we choose in those countries where they already have local regulations, such as Hong Kong and Estonia.
Это наиболее те страны, где уже более есть какая-то регуляция, и мы можем получить определенные профиты для своей деятельности.
So that's those countries where they already implemented some regulations and you're aware of what you can do, so we can get a profit for what we're doing.
Что касается моей родной страны Армении,
What's related to his country of origin, Armenia,
мы пытаемся общаться с представителями власти.
they're trying to communicate with government people.
У нас есть ассоциация блокчейна Армении.
They have Blockchain Association of Armenia,
И мы постоянно проводим определенные конференции.
and they're always doing different conferences and events.
Для того, чтобы и приглашаем на эти конференции представителей
And they always
государства,
invite governmental people to attend
для того, чтобы они понимали, что такое блокчейн,
for them to learn about blockchain technologies and get awareness about it.
потому что они очень много заняты развитием страны, но у них нет времени влезать в технологии.
Because they're really busy with developing their country, but they don't have time to get to know about blockchain technologies.
И постепенно атмосфера к принятию определенных регуляторных законов, она у нас все ближе и ближе.
So time by time, they become more and more aware about blockchain technologies, and atmosphere is changing already. Become more.
На территории государства сделали как свободную экономическую зону.
They already made free market zone,
где пытаются применить определенные законы для того, чтобы проэкспериментировать взаимодействие технологий блокчейн и регуляторной системы.
So these zones are trying to experience how the blockchain businesses can operate in this zone, in this country.
Я думаю, что принятие государственно определенных правил взаимодействия – это процесс просто времени.
So if you think that regulations and operation of blockchain businesses and government, they're just a matter of time.
И это зависит от того, насколько они быстро увидят полезность, как применять блокчейн в банковской сфере и в сфере бизнеса.
And the fast process will go once they're going to see how it can be implemented in a real business.
Поэтому мы надеемся, что и в нашей стране то же самое государство, оно в ближайшее время примет определенные законы, которые нам позволят действовать и на территории и расширить сферу применения криптоиндустрии на территории страны.
So he's hoping that in our countries, government sooner can see that it can be implemented in safe ways and can be spread.
А пока мы выбираем Гонконг.
And meanwhile, we choose Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I do agree that what Nicholas mentioned, that blockchain and cryptocurrency are very much two different things in the eye of regulators. And I can't speak for every country, although I do advise a couple of countries in my line of duty. But if you look at Singapore, we have been the leader in terms of blockchain implementation. We have a sandbox express model where projects or people who want to get RMO license, regulated market operator license, can actually get their license very much quickly. If you prove that your concept and your technology work, you can then become a regulated STO exchange. So in Singapore, we have a lot of good framework, and that's also one of the reasons why many of the companies in Korea, in China, they all registered in Singapore. Not in Malaysia or not in Hong Kong, but most of them flock to Singapore because we have rules that are going to help the industry to grow. We have also most recently come out with the Payment Services Act that added on to the payment token, the new payment token that's in the market. So this will be a very big shift in terms of how the whole market will react. The difference between a utility token, how it's been taxed, versus how the payment token is going to work for many of the projects. So my take on regulation is that things are always changing, and again, blockchain is just a business, a database, and it can never help to stop things like corruption and so forth and so on, because we have heard so many different things, blockchain can help reduce fraud, help reduce corruption. Yeah, I think fraud is okay. Corruption, well, it will still happen whether there's blockchain or no blockchain, right? My friend, you can add on.
I actually 100% disagree that blockchain cannot get rid of the corruption. This has seen, I have all the theory and studies that can prove this wrong. And the e-governments right now are starting to begin up. Estonia is one of the examples. And guess what? Corruption is out. And that's an example.
This is from a very idealistic standpoint. It can do a lot of these things. I'll give you an example. You'll say that Bitcoin has already facilitated a lot of drugs transactions in the market, in the dark web and so forth. But without Bitcoin, the transaction still goes on. So does it mean that blockchain can really help corruption? Yeah, it can help to reduce, but can it stop corruption? There's no way it can be done, because even the simplest theory behind an equity-based token, which is STO, you can't solve it, because whatever information that the company uploads to the chain, if it's rubbish information, fake information, is verified as fake, it's still going to be fake. So there's no way we can stop this from happening. We can help to reduce. So I get the point. I get the point. Maybe one last question, because I'm not sure what's the time like. One last question is, how do you really see the future for blockchain in 2030? Many of us have mentioned about how payments are going to make a difference, like how Libra is going to make a difference. But it seems like Libra is going nowhere, at the current moment. you know. And we have panelists who mentioned about wallets for everybody, you know. Right now, in this current moment, you know, people who try to open up an EOS account, you know, EOS wallet. I mean, how many of you can do it right now? You know, I think not many. I know EDC wallet, you know. But you know, what do you see, you know, in terms of the future of 2030, and how do you see blockchain is going to make a key difference?
So for the new generations, they wouldn't know the difference. They, as on the same way, we don't know what protocol we're using on the sending an email. The blockchain will be a given, and nobody would even care. The new generations, they wouldn't know.
True. A quick one, the time is up, so maybe one quick thing.
No, I totally agree with that. Like, it's like ultimately buying a car, you don't care about like what's behind like the technological part. You just want the car to be running, and you know you associate a brand, you know it's good or not, and you go for it. So, yeah.
I 100% agree that it will become as ubiquitous as water is to a fish, just like we don't think about the internet. We don't have internet conferences anymore. We have conferences about things that are running on the internet. Similarly, there won't be blockchain conferences to go to anymore. I'm very sorry, in 2030. But it will be an amalgam, a combination of IoT and AI and machine learning, of course. And all of these things will be co-combined into this buzzword thing called deep tech. But blockchain is just one part of it. It's an infrastructure for a larger community of technologies. But I really do think that the point you're making before goes back to my point about governance. The reason that Libra isn't working is because humans have trouble getting along. Most people that want to build utopias don't like each other.
Well, first of all, I totally agree with Jonathan's statement here. Secondly, I would further elaborate here. I believe that the future world would be a wallet-based world there. Number one, every aspect of the economy would be turned into digital. Number two, the intermediaries in the economy, such as a wholesaler, retailer, and also possibly going further, you say exporter, importer, and all those guys would be, I would say, disintermediate. The disintermediation will happen or not. So the economy will be much more efficient. And of course, not only the products, but also the financial service. That's very important. I mentioned earlier that the financial service industry has been crowded with a lot of intermediaries, and somehow the capital flow is very much controlled or manipulated by a very small group of so-called professionals who are making no contribution to the economy. So we would see a much more efficient world with the blockchain technology. Of course, as Jonathan mentioned, that we would have to do a combination of all kind of technologies, IoT, AI, cloud computing, and also blockchain as the information transfer platform there. So hopefully many of our entrepreneurs here would see the future there and also get your unicorns started right now. Thank you.
Я вижу таким образом, 2030 год, это моя версия, вы можете с ним согласиться.
He's seeing 2030 version of blockchain.
Я думаю, что в 2030 году искусственный интеллект будет помогать делать выбор человеку.
He thinks that in 2030, artificial intelligence will help a person to make his choice.
Искусственный интеллект будет платить за услугу или
AI
товар.
will be paying for the goods and services by itself.
Другому искусственному интеллекту консультанту,
To another AI
который
consultant
обслуживает другую личность.
who's serving another person.
А человеку нужен блокчейн для того, чтобы проверить, как произошли правильные действия искусственного интеллекта.
And the human beings just need a blockchain to check on these two AIs, how the transactions are going to. If it was correct or not.
Поэтому высшая степень развития, которая может быть, это когда роботы платят друг другу, а человек наслаждается.
So he said that the highest development of blockchain can be when two robots pay into each other and the human being just enjoying and relaxing instead.
Поэтому я думаю, что технология блокчейн именно к этому и ведет.
So that, he thinks that blockchain technologies are
Чтобы
going
человек
to this.
мог регулировать действия искусственного интеллекта.
For the person, human beings can regulate how the AI is operating.
Вот такое мое видение.
That's his vision of 2030.
Well, I'm just going to sum up. I think blockchain for 2030 would be just in our life, and you wouldn't really feel it, right? And I think fully automated society, that's going to happen, and is really coming true in the next 5 to 10 years. But if it's going to come true, the next thing you will see is that you will not have all these panelists on the conference, and there's no need for us to be there. All we need to do is we just close our eyes, and we can transfer information to everybody. So that could be the future. All right. So thank you everybody for your time.
Thank you.
Good to be in Korea again.